The Aztec Empire built towering pyramids, but their true legacy is a legal code so aggressively strict it controlled every second of life. From fatal fashion rules to mandatory public humiliation, ancient Mesoamerica ran on absolute obedience. Today, we reveal 50 of the most absurd, shocking, and downright ruthless Aztec rules that governed everyday life. 1. Let us start with happy hour, or rather, the complete lack of it. Public intoxication was strictly forbidden, but the Aztecs had a bizarre loophole based purely on age. If a healthy young person was caught drinking the local fermented beverage, they faced massive public humiliation. But the moment you turned to 70, the law suddenly flipped. You were legally allowed to drink as much as you wanted, anywhere. The government figured if you survived 7 decades without modern medicine, you earned the right to party. 2. Fashion policing was taken to a completely unhinged level. Today, wearing designer knockoffs might get you judged, but the Aztecs strictly regulated fabrics based on your social class. If a commoner was caught wearing cotton, which was reserved exclusively for the nobility, the punishment was immediate exile or hard labor. You had to wear rough, itchy garments made from agave fibers. Would you risk losing your absolute freedom just to wear a soft, breathable shirt during the humid Mexican summer? 3. Whispering bad things about the Aztec emperor was a profoundly terrible idea. The ruler was considered a living extension of the gods. If temple guards caught a citizen complaining about new taxes or mocking royal decrees, the offender was arrested for high treason. The Aztec state utilized a massive network of secret informants. You never truly knew if the person buying your maize was listening to your angry political complaints. 4. Property lines were not just a friendly suggestion. They were sacred boundaries protected by aggressive legislation. If you got annoyed with a neighbor and secretly moved the stone markers dividing your farming plots, you committed a massive offense. The penalty wasn't a civil lawsuit, it was the absolute confiscation of everything you owned. The empire believed messing with borders insulted the gods. Honest question, how many petty neighborhood disputes would vanish if moving a fence meant losing your entire house? 5. Stealing was obviously illegal, but the punishment depended entirely on what you took and where you took it from. If you stole from a state-owned field, the consequences were severe. However, if you were traveling and took a few ears of corn from a private field located right next to the public road, the law completely ignored it. The Aztecs basically invented the concept of a free public snack. It was considered a basic human right to grab a quick bite on a road trip, as long as you did not pack a bag for later. 6. The legal system also extended its heavy hand into your dating life. Matchmakers were legally bound professionals. If a matchmaker arranged a marriage and lied about the financial status or health of either the bride or groom, they were held criminally responsible when the truth eventually came out. The state would seize the matchmaker's personal assets to compensate the angry newlywed. It was a strict quality assurance guarantee, ensuring that catfishing was a financially ruinous career move. 7. A bad haircut could ruin your life, literally. An Aztec warrior's rank was visually displayed by a very specific top-knot hairstyle. It was strictly illegal to cut this sacred lock of hair unless you were defeated in battle. If a jealous rival snuck up and snipped off a prominent warrior's ponytail, the state treated it as a brutal physical assault. The hair-cutting criminal was severely punished, and the shamed soldier was barred from combat until his honorable hair completely grew back. 8. Touching the sovereign ruler was an incredibly fast way to lose your life. The emperor was not just a political leader. He was viewed as a divine being walking on earth. Even high-ranking military generals had to remain several steps away when speaking to him. If a commoner or visiting diplomat accidentally stumbled and physically brushed against the ruler's garments, imperial bodyguards killed them instantly. Absolute physical distance was the ultimate, mandatory display of total reverence. 9. Every 52 years, the entire society was legally forced to destroy their own homes. During the sacred Aztec New Fire ceremony, the law mandated that citizens smash all their cooking pottery, destroy their furniture, and extinguish every single fire in the city. They sat in total darkness, waiting for priests to ignite a fresh flame on a sacred mountain. If a family secretly kept a small fire burning to stay warm, they risked execution for potentially bringing about the end of the world. 10. Running away from a battle was an invitation for highly creative humiliation. If a soldier showed cowardice but commanders decided to spare his life, they employed a unique psychological punishment. The disgraced soldier was legally forced to wear soiled, tattered women's clothing and sweep the public streets of the city for a predetermined amount of time. It was meticulously designed to strip away every ounce of their masculine warrior pride while simultaneously keeping the capital city completely spotless. 11. The Aztecs instituted incredibly strict environmental laws centuries before modern conservation existed. Cutting down a living green tree without official state permission was considered a massive criminal offense. Citizens were strictly limited to collecting dead, fallen branches to use as their daily firewood. If imperial guards caught a person chopping a healthy living tree in the forest, the penalty was severe. The empire believed nature was deeply sacred. 12. Jewelry in this powerful Mesoamerican empire was heavily restricted by the strict government. Wearing gold, jade, or turquoise was absolutely forbidden for regular citizens. These precious stones and metals were legally reserved only for high-ranking nobles, royalty, and highly decorated warriors. If a wealthy merchant was caught wearing a simple gold necklace in the local market, the state would confiscate his goods and reduce him to slavery. It was a visual system of power. 13. Men were legally expected to be married by their early 20s, usually around 22. If a young man remained unmarried past this culturally mandated age without a valid religious or military excuse, he faced intense societal shunning and lost privileges within his community. The community elders would pressure families to arrange a match quickly. The government essentially treated prolonged bachelorhood as a suspicious and unnatural lifestyle choice. 14. Medical malpractice in the empire carried deeply terrifying consequences for local healers. While herbal medicine and spiritual healing were highly advanced, a doctor had to be incredibly careful. If a healer administered a strong herbal remedy and the patient unexpectedly died due to obvious negligence, the authorities did not just take away their medical license. The negligent healer could be executed by the state. Would you still want to be a local doctor if a single bad prescription meant losing your own life? 15. Religious leaders had a legally mandated, absolutely terrible hygiene routine. Priests serving in the massive pyramid temples were strictly forbidden from ever cutting or washing their hair. Over years of service, their locks would become heavily matted with black soot, incense ash, and thick dirt, forming solid, heavy dreadlocks. If a priest secretly washed his hair in the river just to feel clean, he was violently stripped of his holy title. 16. Grieving the loss of a spouse involved extreme, legally mandated physical discomfort. When a husband died, his widow was strictly forbidden from washing her face, hair, or garments for up to 80 days. This intense mourning law required the woman to sit in isolation, covered in dirt and soot, to publicly demonstrate the agonizing depth of her sorrow. Breaking this ritual by secretly bathing in a river was deeply scandalous. Could you endure nearly 3 months of total mandatory filth just to prove your absolute loyalty to a deceased partner? 17. Respect for older generations was fiercely mandated by Aztec law, not just encouraged. If a young person was caught publicly mocking, insulting, or physically disrespecting an elderly citizen, the community leaders took swift action. The disrespectful youth would be dragged into the public square and beaten with sticks as a harsh warning. Elders were viewed as the vital keepers of history and tradition. Do you think modern society would be vastly different if insulting a senior citizen guaranteed a highly painful public physical punishment? 18. Slavery existed within the empire, but forcing a legally free citizen into slavery was considered an unforgivable atrocity. If someone kidnapped a free person and attempted to sell them in the massive slave markets, the penalty was exceptionally brutal. The kidnapper was immediately sentenced to death, often by hanging in the very same market plaza where they committed the crime. Interestingly, the person who originally discovered the kidnapping plot was highly rewarded, often receiving a portion of the criminal's confiscated personal wealth as a bounty. 19. The Aztecs relied heavily on official ambassadors to communicate with rival city-states. Because these messengers carried the literal words of the emperor, altering the message was treason. If an ambassador secretly changed a diplomatic message, failed to deliver it, or lied about the rival leader's response upon returning to the capital, they were executed. The empire's political stability depended entirely on accurate communication. A single mistranslated word could start a massive war, so the state demanded absolute perfection from its envoys. 20. Practicing dark magic was a terrifyingly real legal offense in ancient Mesoamerica. While the society deeply respected priests and herbal healers, using malevolent magic, or Nahualism, was highly illegal. If a person was accused of casting harmful spells, causing a neighbor's crops to wither, or transforming into an animal to cause chaos, they faced a formal trial. The fear of supernatural attacks was taken just as seriously as a physical weapon being drawn. 21. Applying makeup was culturally regulated to separate honest citizens from outcasts. Respectable women were expected to present themselves naturally, using only water to clean their faces. Only specific, socially marginalized women were legally allowed to dye their hair bright colors, chew noisy gum in public, and paint their faces with thick yellow clay. If a noblewoman adopted this bright aesthetic, elders severely punished her for deliberately imitating the lowest ranks of ancient society. 22. Ruthless warriors on the battlefield, surprisingly progressive lawmakers at home. This ancient society fiercely protected vulnerable citizens, especially families of fallen soldiers. If a greedy relative or wealthy neighbor tried to seize land from a widow after her husband died in jungle combat, the local judges showed absolutely zero mercy. The thief was severely punished and frequently exiled from the valley forever. Ensuring widows kept their ancestral homes was a massive priority. It is an unexpectedly compassionate law for such a fierce empire. 23. Pinch your child to save the universe. That was an actual legal mandate during a solar eclipse in ancient Mesoamerica. Priests preached that a disappearing sun meant star demons would descend to devour humanity. To combat this apocalypse, the law required everyone to make deafening noise. Furthermore, parents were legally obligated to make their young children cry loudly, believing pure tears would summon the sun back to the sky. 24. Traveling merchants were secretly the most dangerous spies in the jungle. Known as Pochteca, these elite traders ventured into rival territories to trade jade and feathers, but their true job was gathering military intelligence. If a foreign king attacked these traders, the empire declared immediate war. However, bringing back false intelligence was a fatal blunder. If a merchant lied to the emperor about enemy troop movements to look successful, he was executed for treason. Trading exotic goods was lucrative, but lying to the crown was a death wish. 25. Watering down your drinks was a dangerously bad business model. Merchants selling fermented agave juice had to maintain strict quality standards set by imperial inspectors. If a vendor was caught secretly diluting the heavy alcoholic drink with dirty river water to increase their profits, their entire stall was destroyed. The cheating merchant was heavily fined and publicly humiliated. 26. Ever wonder how you safely manage a marketplace packed with tens of thousands of people? You enforce a merciless weapons ban. The massive trading plaza of Tlatelolco was the economic heart of the valley. To prevent deadly riots over ruined maize or stolen pottery, citizens were strictly forbidden from carrying tools of war inside. If guards caught you sneaking a sharp obsidian blade past the market gates, the weapon was confiscated and you were permanently banished from trading. Peace in the plaza was maintained through the threat of absolute ruin. 27. Stealing a dog was never just a simple property crime. It was an act of extreme spiritual sabotage. Native hairless dogs were deeply revered because ancient priests taught that these animals safely guided human souls through the treacherous underworld. If a thief stole or unjustly killed someone's sacred dog, The legal system treated it as a severe crime against both the owner and the divine realm. The guilty party faced massive fines and intense shunning. 28. While medieval European kings proudly avoided water, Mesoamerican rulers made personal hygiene a strict legal obligation. The emperor bathed twice daily in private fragrant pools, while common citizens were expected to wash frequently in the local rivers. Refusing to bathe was heavily penalized. If someone walked around covered in mud and filth, authorities socially ostracized them and banned them from attending major religious festivals. Lawmakers genuinely believed that a foul, unwashed body deeply offended the gods and brought disease to the crops. 29. During massive religious ceremonies, absolute silence from the observing crowd was truly a matter of life and death. When priests performed sacred chants atop the towering stone pyramids, the law demanded perfect respect from the masses below. If a reckless citizen stumbled into a sacred dance, mocked the rhythmic drumming, or caused any loud disruption, temple guards dragged them away immediately. Lawmakers tolerated zero disrespect when they believed the angry gods were watching. 30. Packing up your belongings and moving to a new neighborhood was surprisingly illegal without strict government permission. The massive island city was divided into highly organized districts called calpulli. You belonged to your district for life. If you abandoned your home and tried to settle in a different part of the capital without begging the elders for official approval, you lost all farming rights. The state immediately treated you as a hostile, trespassing outsider. This rigid system kept the sprawling, crowded population perfectly controlled. 31. Sipping a warm cup of hot chocolate could literally cost you your life. In this strict Mesoamerican society, frothy, bitter cacao drinks were legally reserved solely for decorated warriors, high priests, and royalty. The rich liquid was considered the sacred blood of the earth. If an ordinary farmer or laborer was caught secretly brewing and consuming cocoa in his mud brick house, the authorities would expel him. Chocolate was the ultimate ancient status symbol. Would you still crave your morning mocha if taking a single illegal sip meant facing the executioner? 32. Wearing the wrong type of bird feather was a fatal offense. The brilliant emerald green plumes of the rare Quetzal bird were considered highly sacred, completely restricted to the emperor and statues of the gods. Even wealthy merchants could not legally stitch these shining green feathers onto their woven cotton cloaks. If a commoner was found sporting a forbidden Quetzal plume, temple guards immediately sentenced them to public humiliation. The state maintained absolute visual dominance. A single green feather was literally worth more than a human life. 33. Privilege came with a terrifyingly high price tag. While elderly commoners could eventually enjoy fermented agave juice, the elite ruling class faced a ruthless double standard. If a high-ranking noble, military general, or royal priest was caught intoxicated in public, there was no gentle warning or public shaming. The imperial law demanded their immediate execution. The empire firmly believed that those granted immense power must demonstrate flawless discipline. A single drunken mistake erased a lifetime of royal privilege. 34. Stealing from a child was considered one of the most abhorrent crimes imaginable. When wealthy parents died, local judges appointed guardians to protect the orphaned children and manage their inheritance of jade and textiles. If investigators discovered that a guardian was secretly embezzling the orphan's fortune for personal gain, the state showed absolutely zero mercy. The corrupt guardian was publicly executed, and all their personal wealth was given back to the wronged child. Ancient lawmakers protected vulnerable kids with incredibly lethal efficiency. 35. Footwear was heavily regulated the moment you stepped near the ruler. The imperial palace featured sprawling courtyards and beautifully carved stone floors, but you could not walk on them with shoes. No matter how incredibly powerful a visiting lord was, the law required everyone to remove their woven agave sandals before entering the royal presence. Walking barefoot symbolized total submission. If an arrogant noble dared to approach the emperor wearing sandals, guards treated it as an active assassination attempt and killed the offender on the spot. 36. Laziness in the agricultural fields was severely penalized by the state. Every family was granted a specific plot of land to cultivate essential crops like maize and beans. However, this land was a conditional loan, not permanent private property. If a farmer neglected their fields and let the soil remain completely overgrown and unplanted for 2 consecutive years, the local council permanently confiscated the plot. The empire survived on massive food production. Refusing to farm meant losing your only source of income and your community standing forever. 37. Price gouging during times of crisis was dealt with violently in Mesoamerican markets. The government set strict, standardized prices for essential goods like maize and beans. If a merchant was caught secretly hoarding food during a drought to artificially inflate prices, they were not just fined. Market inspectors would immediately sentence the greedy merchant to permanent slavery. The state saw market manipulation as a direct threat to public survival, ensuring that basic food supplies remained totally affordable for even the poorest citizens. 38. Labor laws existed centuries before the Industrial Revolution, specifically protecting human cargo carriers. Because the empire completely lacked large pack animals like horses, goods were transported across dense jungles by professional human porters. To prevent wealthy merchants from working these laborers to death, the state legally capped their carrying load at roughly 50 pounds and strictly limited daily travel to 15 miles. If a merchant forced a porter to carry heavier burdens or march farther, imperial judges heavily fined the abusive employer. 39. Marriage vows were enforced by the sharp end of an obsidian blade. In this strict society, infidelity was not just a private domestic dispute, it was a severe capital crime. If a husband or wife was caught committing adultery, the legal penalty was public execution. Interestingly, the law required absolutely solid proof or multiple witnesses to prevent jealous spouses from making false accusations. The state refused to let messy romantic affairs destabilize the strict social order of the city. 40. Insulting a religious figure was a fast track to divine and legal ruin. The towering pyramid temples were operated by powerful priests who interpreted the will of the gods. If a citizen was overheard publicly mocking a priest, questioning their rituals, or disrespecting the heavy incense smoke, it was treated as high treason against the heavens. The guilty party would have their head shaved, their property seized, and they could be forced to serve the temple as a slave for life. You absolutely never spoke ill of the men who literally held the sacrificial knives. 41. Did you know having no rhythm in an Aztec festival could be fatal? During religious ceremonies, hundreds of dancers moved perfectly in sync to heavy wooden drums. If a performer missed a step or ruined the sacred rhythm, they were pulled off the temple steps. Priests believed flawed rituals deeply insulted the gods. The clumsy dancer was severely beaten and permanently banned. Imagine facing physical wrath just because you missed a single musical beat in a massive public performance. 42. Drawing a map was closely guarded business, not a casual hobby. The empire heavily relied on secret mountain passes to launch surprise military campaigns. If an unauthorized commoner was caught sketching accurate maps or sharing regional layouts with foreign traders, they were tried for espionage. Knowing too much about local geography was incredibly dangerous unless you wore the official uniform of an Imperial Jaguar Scout. 43. Decorating your home with carved stone was an extremely risky Aztec aesthetic choice. While ordinary citizens lived in simple adobe huts, only high-ranking nobles were legally permitted to decorate exterior walls with intricate stone carvings. If a wealthy commoner hired a sculptor to carve elaborate serpents onto his doorframe, authorities violently smashed the artwork to dust. The vain homeowner was entirely stripped of his wealth. The state refused to let ordinary people pretend to have royal bloodlines. 44. Leaving waste in the streets was treated as a severe Aztec crime against public health. The massive capital of Tenochtitlan utilized an advanced system of public latrines and stationed canoes to collect human waste for agricultural fertilizer. If a lazy citizen bypassed the system and relieved themselves near a fresh water canal, city inspectors issued brutal public lashings. Keeping the stone streets pristine was a strict civic duty. How clean would modern cities be if littering guaranteed a physical beating? 45. Faking Aztec luxury goods was a guaranteed way to absolutely ruin your life. Artisans who crafted magnificent gold jewelry were highly respected. However, if a silversmith tried to cheat a noble buyer by mixing cheap copper into a gold pendant, imperial inspectors showed zero mercy. The fraudulent artist's workshop was entirely destroyed. The Aztec Empire aggressively protected its luxury market. Tampering with the purity of sacred metals was an unforgivable insult to both buyers and gods. 46. Acting like a lone wolf on the battlefield was completely illegal. Aztec warfare required disciplined formations driven by the rhythmic blowing of conch shells. If a fiercely brave warrior broke the line to charge the enemy alone and steal early glory, commanders did not praise his courage. Instead, he was immediately arrested for insubordination. The rogue soldier was stripped of his rank and publicly humiliated. Aztec military success relied entirely on perfect teamwork, meaning reckless heroes were punished like cowards. 47. The ancient equivalent of spreading rumors had far harsher consequences than modern social embarrassment. If you were found guilty of being a public nuisance by gossiping, authorities would forcefully shave your head in the middle of the town square. Hair was a massive status symbol, and walking around completely bald was the ultimate badge of shame. 48. Refusing to pay your taxes was a spectacularly quick way to lose your freedom. The Aztec Empire functioned on a massive tribute system, demanding everything from jaguar pelts to dried beans. If a regional leader intentionally hid goods to avoid paying imperial tax collectors, the central government dispatched elite warriors to collect the debt by force. The corrupt official was dragged to Tenochtitlan and sold into slavery. Cheating the central treasury was the worst financial mistake a leader could make. 49. Looking at a majestic eagle flying above the valley? You better not shoot an arrow at it. The golden eagle was the supreme symbol of the state, representing the mighty warrior class. Hunting these massive birds was strictly illegal for ordinary citizens. If a hungry farmer killed a wild eagle to protect his turkeys, imperial judges sentenced the farmer to death. Protecting the ultimate symbol of Aztec power was vastly more important than protecting a poor commoner's agricultural livelihood. All right, we have covered 49 incredible Aztec laws, and only one final rule remains. But before we get to number 50, it is time for the final verdict. In our opinion, the award for the most unbelievable rule from today's list goes to the age-restricted alcohol loophole. Simply because a government threatening youth with execution for drinking, only to let 70-year-olds party endlessly, is absolutely hilarious. Do you agree with our verdict? Let us know in the comments. And now, our final number. 50. Cheating in a sacred sports match could literally cost you your head. The Aztec ball game, uncompromising, was not just entertainment. It was a deeply religious event played on massive stone courts. Players used only their hips to knock a heavy rubber ball through a high hoop. If someone was caught using their hands or bribing a referee, the punishments were cruel. They believed cheating offended the cosmos. Modern sports scandals suddenly feel a lot less dramatic when cheating was believed to anger the gods themselves. The Aztec legal system left zero room for error, maintaining order through pure, unapologetic fear. Looking at our world today, do you think modern society is getting too soft on crime? Or were the ancients just completely insane? Drop your honest opinion in the comments below. If this bizarre trip through history blew your mind, hit that subscribe button and leave a like for more incredible ancient secrets.